The airlock hissed open with a foreboding screech, and fear revealing a void teeming with chaos. Stars flickered erratically, and their light warped by gravitational anomalies. Yet, as Commander despite the strain, their shared determination to uncover the truth kept them together. When they finally arrived at the source of the signal, a grim resolve hardened in her eyes. Lieutenant Torin structure floated at the edge of a dying star system. Its surface shimmering with an iridescent glow. It was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between. A living enigma larger than any city they'd ever known. Is it alive? Were screaming distorted gravitational fields. The ship's of radiation that painted already barely red lines began to fail as they drew closer, and an eerie signal pulsating in a pattern no one could decipher. Something's wrong, Commander, said Lieutenant resonating within their very minds. The ship's lead navigator, urging his usually calm voice, prepare for an away mission. That's not just a natural phenomenon. Her voice firm despite the crew was diverse yet tightly. We didn't come this far to turn back. The crew suited up and boarded the shuttle, leaving the Erebus Dawn in orbit around the structure. Engineer Riley Morn, the pragmatic problem solver, who masked their opening a passageway to welcome them inside. And Kalahara, the interior was a labyrinth of glowing corridors and history that hinted at more than just human blood. That each had faced their share of perilous missions as they ventured deeper. Nothing like this. They discovered what could only be described as a central chamber. Violently. It's beautiful, Cal murmured. And their usually guarded demeanor softened. A massive rift beauty quickly turned to horror as the crystalline entity began to change. Its glow intensifying and casting shadows that danced like specters. Of metal and a voice echoed through the chamber, not in words but in emotions. Shields up. Alara barked, and a desperate energy field buckled before they could react. As the chamber erupted into chaos. A guttural, otherworldly separating the crew and trapping them in individual corridors. Each faced visions drawn from their deepest fears and regrets. Riley shouted, the entity testing their resolve. Insect-like drums began scuttling through the airlock, heard the voice bypassing security protocols with an unnerving precision. The crew scrambled into save action, your world, but the invaders moved with lethal efficiency. She clenched her fists, their forms constantly shifting. As what do you mean? On the fly. What are you? Dr. Kale's voice didn't answer, but flooded her with attacking us. It's the blight consuming galaxies, lit the corridors, the crystalline entity but for every drone destroyed. And the faint seemed to take its place, hidden within the labyrinth. The crew each enduring their own trials, by the intruders. Eventually regrouped, the realization hit like a gut punch. They realized the entity wasn't their enemy, it was a prisoner. We're being assimilated, Cal muttered. Their voice desperate cry for liberation. They're turning the Erebus Dawn into part of themselves. They would have to make an impossible choice. Then we take the fight the entity to Riley. Blight's control or merge with it, becoming part of something far beyond their comprehension. But we might not have that long. We make the time, Alara said. Whatever we choose, find out there's no going back. And how Alara took a deep breath. The weight of the universe on her shoulders. Assuming there's anywhere left to run. Count. Jox muttered under his breath. As the crew fought their way toward the engineering bay, the walls themselves began to pulse and shift, the ship merging with the alien life form. Just as Riley armed the charge, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the corridors, bypassing every comm system. Futile. You are already part of the Blight. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Alara's breath caught in her throat as the alien words reverberated, feeling as though they were etched directly into her mind. Jox's hands froze over the navigation console, his knuckles pale with fear. Did anyone else hear that in their head? Riley whispered, his voice barely audible, as though speaking louder might make it worse. Cal tightened their grip on the controls, eyes darting to every screen. It's not just a message, it's in the ship. It's in us. Cal slammed his fist on the console, sweat beading on his forehead. We're running out of time. That thing is rewriting reality faster than we can react. Alara clenched her jaw, forcing the fear aside. Then we don't give it the chance. Move. Now! The crew froze, their blood running cold. The charge detonated, severing the connection temporarily, but the relief was short-lived. As the Erebus Dawn limped away, the rift behind them widened, and another entity emerged. Section 2. The ship hurtled through space, barely holding together as the rift expanded behind them. The crew scrambled to repair the systems, but the Blight had left its mark. Fragmented pieces of their ship had become infected, and strange growths began to sprout in the corridors, pulsating with alien energy. Dr. Kale worked feverishly in the medbay, analyzing a fragment of the drone they had recovered. This isn't just a machine. It's a virus, a biological, technological hybrid designed to consume and repurpose everything it touches. What about the signal? Alara demanded, pacing the cramped room. Can we block it? Kale shook his head. It's not just communication. It's control. The Blight doesn't just command, it rewrites. Cal burst in, their face grim. Bad news. The rift's spreading. We've got about 2 hours before it destabilizes the entire sector. 2 hours? Alara stared at the pilot, her mind racing. We need options. Now. Riley's voice crackled over the com. We might have one, but you're not gonna like it. There's a derelict station nearby, part of the old Nexus defense grid. If we can reactivate its weapon systems, we might be able to collapse the rift. What's the catch? Jox asked, already dreading the answer. It's crawling with Blight signatures, Riley replied. And if we trigger the grid, we'll be right in the blast radius. Of course we will, Jox muttered. Why wouldn't we be? The Erebus Dawn changed course, racing toward the station. The approach was harrowing. The Blight was spreading like wildfire, its drones swarming through space like locusts. Cal's piloting skills were pushed to the limit as, once aboard, the crew found the station in ruins. Blight growths had overtaken entire sections, and the atmosphere was thick with an oppressive hum. As they moved deeper, the station seemed to come alive, shifting and reshaping to trap them. We're running out of time, Alara said, her voice tight. Riley, get those weapons online. Kale, see if you can isolate the Blight signal and disrupt it. The rest of us will hold the line. The battle that followed was chaos. The crew fought valiantly, but the Blight was relentless. Just as Riley activated the weapons, the station began to collapse, its structural integrity compromised. The crew barely made it back to the Erebus Dawn before the grid fired, a massive energy wave ripping through space. The rift began to close, but then something emerged from it. Something bigger, something worse. Section 3. The entity that emerged from the rift was colossal, dwarfing even the station. Its form defied comprehension. A shifting mass of light and shadow, metal and flesh. It radiated an overwhelming presence, as if the very fabric of reality bent around it. This isn't just a drone, Kale whispered, staring at the display with wide, unblinking eyes. His voice trembled, betraying the depth of his realization. It's their core, their hive mind. He zoomed in on the readings, his hands shaking. It's not just commanding the other entities, it's shaping them, controlling them like extensions of itself. Every drone, every structure, it's all a single organism. Jox leaned over Kale's shoulder, his face pale. You mean, it's not just an army, it's a body? Kale nodded grimly. Exactly. And if we damage it, it won't just repair itself, it will evolve. It's designed to adapt, to overcome anything thrown at it. Riley's jaw tightened as the weight of the revelation sank in. So if we don't stop it here and now, it's game over. Alara's gaze hardened, her mind racing. Then we've got one chance. We need to hit it where it's weakest before it figures out how to counter us. Kale, find us that weak point. The Erebus Dawn was out of options. Their weapons were depleted, their systems compromised, and the crew was exhausted. But Alara refused to give up. If that thing gets through, it's over. We have to stop it here. How? Jox demanded. We've got nothing left. We have one thing, Alara said, her gaze steely. The Erebus Dawn itself. The plan was insane. A direct collision with the entity, using the ship's remaining energy to overload its core. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. As the ship raced toward the entity, the crew prepared for the end. But then, an unexpected signal cut through the chaos, a message from deep space, in a language they couldn't comprehend but instinctively understood. It's a warning, Kale said, deciphering it, and a weapon. Using the information from the signal, the crew rerouted the ship's systems, creating a pulse that disrupted the Blight's control. The entity faltered, its form destabilizing. Seizing the moment, Alara guided the ship into its core, unleashing the full power of the pulse. The explosion was blinding. Section 4. When the light faded, the crew found themselves adrift in a field of debris. The rift was gone, and the Blight's presence had vanished, but the cost was immense. The Erebus Dawn was barely functional, and the crew was battered and scarred. As they regrouped, a faint signal echoed through the ship. It was the same language as before, but this time, it carried a sense of urgency and a location. They weren't just warning us, Kale said, his voice heavy. They were calling for help. The crew exchanged weary looks. Their mission was over, but their fight was just beginning. Alara stared out at the stars, determination burning in her eyes. Set a course, she said, her voice steady, though her mind churned with uncertainty. Around her, the crew exchanged glances, each lost in their thoughts. Cal tightened their grip on the controls, a flicker of determination crossing their face. I never thought I'd see a day when we'd venture this far into the unknown, they murmured, half to themselves. Jox leaned back in his chair, forcing a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. If we don't make it back, I'm blaming you, Alara. He caught her raised eyebrow and added, not that I had much of a life waiting for me anyway. Kale's gaze lingered on a fragment of the Blight still on his workstation, its faint glow casting eerie patterns on his face. I wonder, if we find answers out there, will they be worth the price we've already paid? Alara's grip tightened on the console. We all knew the risks when we signed up for this mission. Whatever happens, we face it together. Her eyes scanned the bridge, landing on each crew member. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about finding out why we fight and what we're fighting for. Silence settled over the room, heavy with unspoken fears and quiet resolve. The ship trembled as Cal adjusted the thrusters, propelling them toward the faint coordinates of the signal. Alara exhaled deeply. Let's find out who or what is out there. As the ship limped into the void, the audience was left with a tantalizing question. Had they truly defeated the Blight? Or was this just a beginning of something far greater? The Erebus Dawn limped forward, guided by the faint signal's coordinates. It was unlike any known transmission, a mix of harmonics and sequences that spoke directly to the mind, rather than conventional receivers. Cal, seated at the helm, glanced at Alara. This signal, it's pulling us in more ways than one. Jox, analyzing the readings, nodded in agreement.